When we hear the name Anne Frank, we often think of a historical icon, a symbol. But today, we're going to go beyond that. We're going to try and understand the girl behind the name through her own words she wrote in a diary she never, ever expected the world to see. So let's just start with this one quote from her. Paper has more patience than people. I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. That's an incredibly insightful and honestly a kind of heavy thought for a 13-year-old to have. And that's really the big question, isn't it? What happens in a young girl's life that makes her feel that a simple, blank book could be a better, more patient friend than any actual person she knows? To really get to the bottom of this, we need to understand why she started writing in the first place. What was it that pushed her to turn to a diary as a confidant? Because, if you were just an outsider looking in at her life, you would never, ever guess that she was lonely. Not for a second. It looked like she had it all. And she even lays it all out for us in her diary. She had loving parents, an older sister, a good home, even, and get this, about 30 people I can call friends. 30! So on paper, she was anything but alone. But, and this is the part that changes everything, despite being surrounded by all those people, she felt like something absolutely essential was missing. In her own words, she had everything except my one true friend. She had plenty of friends, but no one she felt she could really open up to. So what was her solution? Well, this is where her amazing imagination just takes over. She decided to create that friend. She didn't want to just keep a record of events, she wanted a real connection. So she gave her diary a name, Kitty, and started writing letters to her as if she were the best friend she'd always been searching for. Now, to really understand her diary entries, it's super important to have a quick snapshot of what her world was actually like before her family went into hiding. You can see from this timeline just how much danger was closing in on them. She was born in Germany, but her family had to flee to Holland right as the Nazis were rising to power. And for a while, things were okay. But by July of 1942, things got so bad that they had no choice but to vanish from public life and go into hiding. But it's so important to remember that Anne Frank was so much more than a victim. She was this vibrant, funny person, and this next story she tells Kitty, it's just a fantastic peek into her incredible wit and spirit. So picture this. She's in her math class, and her teacher, a guy she calls the old fogey Mr. Keesing, is just always annoyed with her because she talks so much. Her defense? Oh, it's classic Anne. She basically says, well, talking is just what students do. And besides, I get it from my mom, so what can I do about it? Well, Mr. Keesing wasn't buying it. So first he assigns her an essay on being a chatterbox. She keeps talking. So he gives her another one, this time on being an incorrigible chatterbox. She still keeps talking. So finally, he decides he's had enough and comes up with one last ridiculous punishment to shut her up for good. And this was it. In front of the entire class, he gives her the final assignment, an essay called Quack, 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 said Mistress Chatterbox. The whole class just roared with laughter. The joke was obviously supposed to be on Anne. But oh no, not Anne. She wasn't going to be the punchline. She decided right then and there that she was going to flip this whole thing around and make sure the joke was on Mr. Keesing. So with a little help from a friend who was good at poetry, she hands in her essay, written completely in verse. And it's this hilarious, kind of dark poem about 3 baby ducklings who are bitten to death by their swan father, all because they quacked too much. It was just a brilliant little piece of rebellion. And you know what? It completely worked. Mr. Keesing totally got the joke. He thought it was so clever that he read the poem out loud to her class and even to some other classes. And from that day on, he let her talk in class and never gave her extra homework again. It's just incredible to think that this clever, funny schoolgirl, writing these very private thoughts to an imaginary friend, had absolutely no idea that her words would one day speak for millions of people. And the biggest irony of all is what Anne herself predicted for her diary. She literally wrote that she couldn't imagine that she, or anyone else for that matter, would ever be interested in the thoughts of a regular 13-year-old girl. Well, history had very different plans. The diary of that 13-year-old schoolgirl went on to become one of the most widely read and most important books in the entire world. Her legacy, which she never could have imagined, is just immense. Her diary has been translated into dozens and dozens of languages. It's been adapted for movies, for TV, for the stage, even for an opera. But most importantly, it's become this incredibly personal, intimate look at what life was really like under persecution. And I want to leave you with this. This is a photo of Anne with something she wrote herself in October of 1942, right after going into hiding. It's just such a powerful reminder that behind the historical symbol, there was a real girl. A funny, ambitious, hopeful girl with big dreams of her own. A girl whose voice, thanks to her friend Kitty, continues to speak to all of us today.